Passengers. Wilford Industries wishes you good morning.
Mr. Wilford would like to address the rumors of disturbances in the tail. Let me assure you, your security is our highest priority.
There's something immediately haunting about the premise of Snowpiercer. A world frozen solid, reduced to silence and ice, while the last fragments of humanity circle endlessly on a train that never stops. It's not just a science fiction idea. It feels like a pressure chamber for everything that defines society: power, inequality, morality, and survival, compressed into a single moving ecosystem. What makes this story so compelling is how it transforms a simple concept into a sprawling, layered narrative about human nature under extreme conditions. More than 7 years after the Earth has been plunged into a man-made ice age, the train itself becomes the entire world. Every inch of life, every social rule, every ambition and betrayal happens within its steel walls. And what begins as a survival mechanism slowly evolves into something far more complex: a rigid class system that mirrors, and in many ways exaggerates, the inequalities of the old world. At the very front of the train, luxury defines existence. Elegant dining cars, lush greenery, curated environments that try to replicate a lost civilization. Meanwhile, at the tail end, people are crammed into dark, overcrowded spaces, barely surviving, clinging to scraps, and living under constant oppression. The brilliance of Snowpiercer lies in how it doesn't just present this divide, it interrogates it. It forces you to sit with the discomfort of a system where hierarchy is not only accepted, but enforced with brutal precision. The train isn't just transportation, it's a philosophy, a doctrine, almost a religion. Order must be maintained at all costs, because chaos could mean extinction, and that justification becomes the foundation for cruelty. One of the most striking elements of the story is how it treats power. Power on Snowpiercer isn't just about authority, it's about control over resources, information, and perception. Those at the top dictate not only who eats and who starves, but also what people believe. The mythology of the train, the idea that everything functions according to a grand, necessary design, becomes a tool to suppress rebellion. It creates a sense of inevitability, as if the system cannot be changed because it is the only thing keeping humanity alive. Yet, beneath that carefully maintained order, tension is always simmering. The tail section, filled with those who boarded without tickets or were forced into the lowest ranks, represents the suppressed anger of a society built on injustice. Their struggle is not just about survival, it's about dignity, about reclaiming agency in a world that has stripped them of it. And this is where Snowpiercer becomes more than a dystopian narrative. It becomes a reflection of real-world social dynamics, amplified through the lens of extreme circumstances. As the story unfolds, it weaves together multiple perspectives, showing how different characters navigate this rigid hierarchy. Some seek to uphold the system, believing that stability is worth the sacrifice. Others challenge it, risking everything to disrupt the status quo. And then there are those caught in between, torn between fear and hope, unsure whether change is even possible. What makes these dynamics so engaging is the moral ambiguity that runs through them. There are no simple heroes or villains. Even those who enforce the harshest rules often believe they are acting in the best interest of humanity. And those who rebel are not always purely noble. Their actions can be driven by desperation, anger, or a willingness to embrace violence. This complexity adds depth to the narrative, making every conflict feel consequential and layered. The train itself plays a crucial role in shaping these interactions. Each car represents a different aspect of society, almost like a moving microcosm of the world that once was, from agricultural sections that sustain life to industrial areas that keep the train running. Every part is interconnected, and yet access to these spaces is tightly controlled, reinforcing the divisions between classes. Movement along the train becomes symbolic. Progress toward the front is not just physical, but social and political. This structure allows the story to explore a wide range of themes. It delves into questions of governance. What kind of leadership is necessary in a world on the brink? Is authoritarian control justified if it ensures survival, or does it inevitably lead to oppression? It also examines the concept of revolution, asking whether dismantling a flawed system can truly lead to something better, or if it simply creates new forms of chaos. Another fascinating aspect is how Snowpiercer handles the idea of hope. In a world where the environment is completely inhospitable, hope becomes both a driving force and a dangerous illusion. For some, hope lies in maintaining the train, preserving what little remains of humanity. For others, it's about imagining a future beyond the train, a possibility that challenges everything they've been told. This tension between preservation and transformation is at the heart of the story. The narrative also doesn't shy away from exploring the psychological toll of such an existence. Living in a confined space for years under constant surveillance and rigid rules changes people. It breeds paranoia, loyalty, betrayal, and resilience in equal measure. Relationships are strained by the pressures of survival, and trust becomes a rare and valuable commodity. The characters are not just fighting external conditions, they're grappling with their own fears, desires, and moral limits. Visually and conceptually, the train's perpetual motion adds another layer of symbolism. It suggests a kind of endless cycle, humanity trapped in a loop, unable to move forward or backward, only continuing. This raises profound questions about whether true progress is even possible within such a system. Can a society built on inequality ever evolve, or is it doomed to repeat the same patterns? At the same time, the story injects moments of humanity that cut through the bleakness. Acts of kindness, solidarity, and sacrifice remind us that even in the harshest conditions, people can find ways to connect and care for one another. These moments provide a counterbalance to the darker elements, offering glimpses of what humanity could be if freed from the constraints of fear and hierarchy. As tensions escalate, the narrative builds toward larger confrontations that test the limits of both the characters and the system itself. Alliances shift, secrets are revealed, and the fragile balance of power begins to crack. What makes these developments so compelling is the sense that every action has consequences, not just for individuals, but for the entire ecosystem of the train. In a closed system, there is no escape from the ripple effects of change. The idea of survival is constantly redefined throughout the story. Initially, survival is about maintaining the train at all costs, but as the narrative progresses, it becomes clear that mere survival is not enough. The characters begin to question what kind of life they are preserving. Is it worth enduring endless suffering for the sake of existence? Or is there a point where the pursuit of a better life becomes more important than survival itself? This philosophical tension is one of the driving forces of Snowpiercer. It challenges viewers to consider their own values and assumptions. What would you prioritize in such a world? Stability or freedom? Order or justice? These are not easy questions, and the story doesn't offer simple answers. Instead, it presents a spectrum of perspectives, allowing the audience to engage with the complexity of the issues. The political dimension of the narrative is equally compelling. The train operates as a highly controlled state with its own laws, enforcement mechanisms, and propaganda. It's a system designed to maintain control, often at the expense of fairness. And yet, it also highlights the fragility of such systems. When people begin to question authority, when cracks appear in the narrative that sustains the hierarchy, the entire structure becomes vulnerable. Technology also plays a significant role in shaping this world. The train itself is a marvel of engineering, a self-sustaining machine that defies the frozen wasteland outside. But it also represents the hubris of humanity, the idea that technology can solve problems without addressing the underlying issues that created them. In many ways, Snowpiercer suggests that the same mindset that led to the climate catastrophe continues to influence how people try to survive it. As the story continues to unfold, it expands its scope, introducing new elements and challenges that keep the narrative dynamic. It doesn't remain static, it evolves, much like the characters themselves. This evolution is crucial as it prevents the premise from becoming repetitive and allows for deeper exploration of its themes. Ultimately, what makes Snowpiercer so powerful is its ability to blend high-concept science fiction with deeply human storytelling. It uses its unique setting not just as a backdrop, but as a lens through which to examine fundamental questions about society, morality, and the human condition. It's a story that resonates because it feels both distant and familiar, a speculative future that reflects present realities. And as the train continues its endless journey through the frozen world, the question remains, is this truly the last refuge of humanity, or just a temporary chapter in a larger story? The answer is never straightforward, and that uncertainty is part of what keeps the narrative so engaging. It invites you to keep thinking, to keep questioning, and to consider what it really means to survive, not just as individuals, but as a society.